Let's have another look at the collocates of disabled. This time, let's think about whether the people being represented are being represented in an active role, a neutral role, or a passive role, or indeed whether some of these examples relate to non-humans. And really, I want to focus on the distinction here between active and passive disabled people as represented in what we're reading. Well, when we look again at British and American English here, we finally start to see some collocates which occur more strongly in British English. And they are to do with representing disabled people in an active role, as a traveller, campaigner, pupil, learner. Note that the passive role is deleted, if you like, in terms of these preferred collocates in British English, whereas in American English you get a wider variety of them, or a wide variety of them. Widow, retiree, vet, short for veteran, beneficiary, veteran. So, for those collocates which disabled modifies, British English, we might argue, is much more empowering than American English on the basis of the data that we've seen. You might even argue with words like widow and retiree being in there, that there is a negative association of loneliness and futility with disabled people in American English that's not at all salient in British English. Let's have a much closer look at a smaller number of examples of disabled. We took a random sample of 300 concordance lines from the UK data in each year. Instances were analysed for the type of use of the words of disabled in context and described in terms of three broad categories plus another category. The three broad categories were describing, essentialising, and definitions. The describing type is the use of the word disabled as one aspect of a person, though not the only or even the most important feature of them. This can occur as a so-called attributive adjective, e.g., her disabled daughter. Then there is the essentialising type, which we view as much more problematic. Uses of disabled, these are which construe the person as defined by their disability and nothing else. In these cases, disabled is a noun. Bruno hated the disabled. And then there are definitions. This includes cases where disabled does not refer to people, but is being problematized or discussed in sort of metalinguistic terms. It's discussion about the word disabled, for example. So an example would be, it's a narrow definition of disabled. And then there are other cases where there are non-human reference, so disabled toilets, or she was disabled by the operation, or the plane was disabled. So how does this work? Ideally, what we'd want to be seeing is describing and definition uses of disabled increasing, and hopefully in the year of the Paralympics, and essentialising uses becoming less frequent, and certainly, hopefully, being affected by a major event like the Paralympics. So what do we find in this random sample? Well, we find broadly that. If we look at the year 2012, for example, in percentage terms, we see the highest use of describing uses of the word disabled, and the highest use of definitions, examples of the word disabled. And we see the lowest number of examples of essentialising uses of the word disabled. So that gives us some findings. There has been a general tendency towards increased describing uses of the word disabled over time. Essentialising uses of disabled, which define people solely on the basis of their disability, dropped markedly in the UK media over this period and dropped very markedly in the year of the Paralympics. And finally, this definitions increase, and when we look at the 2012 data, we see it's because of an increased dialogue around the meaning of the word disabled.